Hello and welcome to another Two Network match report with me, Adam. It's finished at Stamford Bridge. It's finished Chelsea 2, Newcastle 1. It was always going to be an exercise in damage limitation going away to Stamford Bridge. In the opposite fixture earlier on in the season, we came so close to snatching a late equaliser against them, but for a very unfortunate own goal by Yedlin in the dying minutes against Chelsea for them to nick it. And after Pedro took the lead after about 8 minutes, you were just kind of thinking this is going to be an absolute destruction exercise given the injuries that we had in midfield. You know, we had Hayden and Longstaff's first full Premier League debut. We had one-to-way Isaac Hayden, who in fairness has been putting in a few shifts the last few games. But we were without Diarmi, without Shelvey, without Dummett. Federico Fernandez was on the bench. Kennedy wasn't available at all. So we were hugely depleted today, and I think that showed. And long ball over from David Luiz, which was excellent. I think there was just some defensive miscommunication between Richie and Kieran Clark on the left-hand side of defence. So at the point that David Luiz releases that long ball over the top, and this seemed to be a recurring theme throughout the game, where Chelsea were just trying to play these balls in behind to drop onto the 18-yard box. Like the line of the 18-yard box for their runners to penetrate our defence, and to get in behind that way. At the point that David Luiz releases the ball, Richie's pointing at Clark to say, "That's your man." Richie is standing right next to Pedro. Richie can see Pedro's run. Clark cannot from the point at which he is. When he's miles away, I'm looking at it on the screen right now in the replay. Clark's nowhere near. Richie's left him because of Azpilicueta, who's on the right-hand side, on the Chelsea right-hand side. Richie cannot point and then run the opposite direction when a ball is being played over to that player. Pedro runs in behind. Clark is, he's flat-footed because he's suddenly been told that's his man in the middle of an attacking phase of Chelsea. There's no time to react. Clark tries to get in. Dubravka's sort of left in no man's land, and to not take anything away from Pedro, from that defensive mix-up, it really was. And I think it comes from Richie, unfortunately. But I think that's a very cool lob over Dubravka. A very neat finish from a very good player. And this is what you've got. You've got Pedro, who's Spanish international. He's played in big tournaments. He's won things with Barcelona. He's won things with Chelsea, indeed. And we've got Kieran Clark, who's essentially our 5th choice centre-back, if everyone's fit. He's our 5th choice centre-back. But I tell you what, the lad bloody tries hard, and he gives everything for this club, and I can't fault his application and attitude, Kieran Clark. But I'm not going to quote Richie either in terms of his attitude, but I think that's absolutely criminal to just point at somebody and run away when he turns out to be the dangerous player making the run through. It's criminal, and it cost us, and we went 1-0 down very early on, but we didn't crumble. And in typical Rafa Benitez fashion, we held firm, and we were solid, and we were completely out of the game. Like, we weren't getting anything in the final third in that first half an hour of the first half. There was an incident where Kante had gone through, I think, and sort of Kieran Clark had covered, but Kante had left a foot in on him. It wasn't intentional, it wasn't malicious from Kante, but no free kick given. And then later on, Richie sort of went to slide in. There was maybe slight intent there from a player going through, but on Azpilicueta, but it was a yellow card even though he didn't touch him. And it was just that little decisions like that, really fortunate, were always going to kind of go against us. There was a couple of penalty shouts as well. I mean, there was a couple where they Chelsea player may have been sort of fouled by Lascelles. I don't think there's much in that. There was one where Perez went down in the second half. I don't think there was much in that either. So I think they kind of balanced themselves out anyway. But Atsu you know, again, Atsu Perez, very energetic. Rondon struggled to do much, to be honest, against, he seemed to be quite isolated. We weren't really using our, we weren't really being able to use him as an outlet as much as we'd like, and, you know, there was just a lot of, you know, disconnect, I guess, once again between the lines, you know, and I don't know if we were played slightly too high as a defensive line today, just simply because Chelsea kept trying to knock those long balls over the top for runners to run onto. Hazard in the false 9 position, I thought, was marshalled pretty well all day. Hazard did not have the game that he would have liked to have had this afternoon, and credit to the defenders for that. I thought Florian Lejeune was excellent. Came back in for his, you know, his first full start in the Premier League since beating Chelsea, I think, in May last year, 3-0. And I mean, immediately we just saw what we missed. He's by far our best player. I think Dubravka's second in terms of importance and in terms of natural ability. But Lejeune, wow, just his composure, his physicality, his anticipation, his timing, and he's just got great technique as well. Like he can spray a long ball. He had that volley in the first half, which was pretty, you know, was our first shot on target, and was only one of 2 shots on target, which we'll get onto in a minute. But I thought Lejeune put an absolute shift in, and credit to Longstaff again today. Sean Longstaff, special mention. He did not look out of place against, you know, world class midfielders like Conte has just won the World Cup. You know, you've got Kovacic, who's a great talent. He's played for Real Madrid. You know, Barkley came on as well. You've got players who can bloody well play, and Jorginho, who just is the metronome that keeps things ticking over. But I thought we were, you know, in terms of our play to try and counter them, as much as we, in an attacking sense, we're nowhere near them in the first half. Certainly for the first half an hour, we were snapping at the heels. We were in their face all the time, and that's how you get them. And I think that's how we rattled them and stopped them playing, you know, free-flowing football that Chelsea enjoyed playing. We got a corner in the first half, and Kieran Clark, I've got it, like, whipped in by Richie, outswinger. And Kieran Clark, I think he's closest to Rudiger. He's directed and arrowed this header perfectly, nestled in the corner. Like, the keeper doesn't save that. I don't think any keeper saves that. I don't think it's on Kepa's head, that, because it was an absolutely phenomenal header from Kieran Clark. And as I said before, he's our 5th choice defender, who now has more goals than our 2nd choice striker in Hosselu this season. He's got 3 goals this season, Clark. And that kind of, again, it's another one of these facts that just typifies Newcastle at the minute, typifies our squad, a lack of depth. It typifies how chronic we are in the final third in terms of creativity and goal scoring. Like, we just lack it. But fair play to Clark for that. It was a wonderful corner from Richie. I think, you know, redeemed himself for that kind of the pointing error for their first goal, and just fantastic from Clark. Absolutely brilliant. Like, again, like I said before, cannot fault that attitude and application. He's called upon when he's, you know, he performs when called upon, and you can't ask for anything more from a player like that. You just can't. And then we started getting a bit, you know, got our tails up, and, you know, Perez got played through, and had a sort of like snapshot wide. He was stretching a little bit, and it sort of screwed it wide slightly. Just came off the outside of his right foot. Rondon got a small sight of goal, but it was on his left foot and from quite far out. It would have been some shot to trouble the keeper from there, and it didn't. But, you know, there was a couple of times, I mean, straight after the goal, Willian got played in immediately in the same ball that I described before, just in behind, and Dubravka came out and saved. And Rafa was absolutely furious, and it was like, they are such a threat because they have that passing precision that even our best passers, when fit, can't really manage, you know, and so consistently. And they've got the runners, and they've got pace and skill and talent, and it's, you know, again, the disparities in the squad we're plain to see. And we did get a lot of shots away today. We had 9 shots on target to their 10, but we just didn't have the accuracy. As I said, the only shots on target we had was that Clark header and a Florian Lejeune volley from 25 yards, and that's not going to get you points at Stamford Bridge. It's really not. In the second half, again, it seemed like we just didn't really have. We never really troubled them. We finished the first half incredibly well. We had them rattled. And as much as we were very, very difficult to break down in the second half, it wasn't enough. You have to give more if you want to win a Premier League game against a very, very good team. And I think we did seem to play more open and not as cautious today, which, you know, credit Rafa Benitez, because, you know, if you think about the away match at Man United, he kind of went for it, and we scored early on, and we pushed them, and that could have gone a different way. And today, we were done by those balls, and we were ultimately done by another defensive miscommunication, which I'll explain in a minute. But we did have chances. 9 shots at Stamford Bridge. It's, you know, it's not Rafa's fault that the players that he has can't shoot on target. In a way, you know, he can only manage his tactics to encourage his players to get in the right positions. You know, Perez won, you know, Rondon had got a long ball from Dubravka, flick on from Rondon, and, you know, that was a really nice move, route one, but it was effective, and it was pretty much, we're not going to be able to play possession football against Chelsea, so those are the kind of opportunities we need to take. But again, I can't fault the tactics today. I think the goals that Chelsea scored came from defensive miscommunications, you know, and defensive communication mixed with amazing skill and talent, and that's what we saw in the second goal as well, because we saw Hazard sort of trying, you know, looking to drive towards the defence, so he's met with a black and white wall, and he passed it wide to Willian. Now you've got Yedlin and Lejeune, and Yedlin goes across and puts his hands behind his back, you know, doing that, you know, doesn't want to give away a penalty, and Lejeune's kind of pointing to Yedlin to say, make, you know, cover him if he goes onto his left foot. I've got him on his right foot. But in pointing at him in that moment, distracted the 2 defenders. So Willian had the half yard just to pick a spot, and he just curled it round in off the put. I mean, it was a beautiful finish. It was an unbelievable goal. And again, like the Pedro one, I'm taking nothing away from that finish because it was class. In fact, all 3 goals were, you know, had their merits. The finishes in particular were very, very high quality. It was just the build-up that I thought that we had, you know, there was 2 defensive errors where we basically had miscommunication between 2 Newcastle defenders. One of the defenders was pointing, and we weren't able to stop it. And, you know, I don't want to vilify Lejeune either and Yedlin, but they basically conspired to not be able to block Willian on his right foot, which was what he was always going to do. He's never going to go on his left foot, Willian. Just make sure he can't get on his right foot. Push him either to pass deep centrally, or try, you know, bluff him, you know, get him to call his bluff. Is he going to go out on his left foot, which way he won't be as effective. So I thought that was just poor. We should have closed that down. Dubravka has just got no chance. It was just Willian is very, very, very good at those curling shots. You see him doing it from free kicks all the time. He just has that in his locker, and that was enough to win the game. But, you know, the fact that Chelsea, we forced Chelsea to produce 2 moments of brilliance, albeit from those moments of defensive miscommunication on our part, but we made them work for that victory tonight. And 2-1s against a team like Chelsea, home and away. We nearly drew the home fixture, and we had so many injuries tonight. Look, I'm just kind of glad it wasn't an absolute mauling, and that's where we are right now. I'm pleased it wasn't 4-0, 3-0. I'm pleased that we put in a good shift whereby we can pick ourselves up quite easily, because the next game against Cardiff is going to be absolutely massive. It's crucial we win that game. It's a must win. We've now dropped Because Burnley and Southampton won, we have now dropped into the bottom 3. We have 2 weeks left of the January transfer window. Mike Ashley was there tonight. He's seen his side do everything that it humanly and physically could be asked of them today. Couldn't have done any more. That team that cost that much, that has that talent against a team like Chelsea. You're looking at the players, looking at the manager, and you think, what fucking more do you want from them? What more do you want from them, Ashley? He has to sort this. He has to put a deal in place whereby if he is going to sell the club, funds get given to the manager. Or he needs to sanction that himself if he's not going to sell. But what we know is that it'll be cutting it far too fine. Far too fine if we don't purchase anybody in January. Like, it's a toss of a coin. I still think we've got just enough, but I think we finished like 17th on goal difference. You know, I don't think anyone now has lost more games than us. The only teams that have lost more games than us now, I think, are like Burnley, Fulham, Huddersfield and Cardiff. It's just, what are we supposed to do? We've got Cardiff coming up and then Man City at home. You know, it's like this, it's like we'll be lucky if we come out of anything with the Man City game, which makes that Cardiff game pivotal. I think if we win the Cardiff game, we can pick ourselves up again. But we lose that Cardiff game, that must-win Cardiff game, we're then relying on picking up points and wins against unexpected teams like Man City, like Spurs away. It's massively unlikely, but we have to get points from somewhere. We have to. Don't know what more to say, but things are getting pretty desperate now. Like I say, I can't fault the manager and players today. I thought they played out the skin against just a better side. And we give them a game. We were in it right at the end. We had a corner right at the end that we didn't put in into the box, even though we had pretty much everyone in there. Like, just put the ball in the box. But there we go. Murphy and Manquillo came on. Didn't really have a chance to do much or have much impact, but there we go. Cardiff next. We can't be cautious. We have to attack them and go at them. It's a must-win. It's huge. But as we saw last season in the big games at home that we needed to absolutely win, Huddersfield and Southampton at home, we smashed it. And Rafa came through for us. So keep the faith. I'm going to believe we're going to win that Cardiff game. And I think from about the 11th of February, we get a run of fixtures that are feasibly won. Lots of points to be had. And we can't make any mistakes. From that point onwards, no more excuses. We have to just plough on. I'm going to give me man of the match to Longstaff. I think Lejeune probably had a better game if you're just looking at it, you know, objectively. But Longstaff to come in for his first full Premier League debut for Newcastle United and play with such composure, not nonchalance, because he wasn't lily, he wasn't lolloping around. He was very energetic. He was getting tackles in. He was getting interceptions in. He was spraying the ball around, playing with confidence. That is the future of Newcastle United. You know, for a player like that to come into a huge game like that because of injuries, and to put on that kind of performance, Sean Longstaff, take a bow. I can't fault you. You're an absolute credit to this football club. And had our academy not been neglected for so long, you shouldn't be a one-off. We should have a team littered with youth prospects. Paul Dummett's doing great for us, and Longstaff. We got nobody else. Tells a lot. Tells a story, doesn't it? Anyway, I've been Adam the Two Network. Thanks so much for watching and for listening as well. If you've had the audio version of this on the podcast, please like, subscribe, and I'd really love to get your comments and feedback. How do you think we did tonight, and what do you think we're going to do against Cardiff? Would love to hear that. Anyway, thanks very much. I've been Adam. Till next time, bye-zy bye.